Thanks for viewing this presentation on church advisory and strategic planning. In about 15 minutes, I'll provide you with new ideas and our process that absolutely works. Let's begin. My name is Brandon Moore, and I am the President and CEO of BKMpc Certified Public Accountants, a regional CPA firm in Texas. I've been working with businesses, churches, and nonprofits for many years now in accounting, tax, and other advisory services. My hope is that through this short video, you will see what our firm can do for you to help you accomplish your mission, maximize your resources, and see the vision that God's given you come to pass. We expect to see improvements begin within 8 to 12 weeks from implementation. Then we adopt an approach of continuous improvement to drive changes into the culture of your church. When advising churches, we understand the role of pastor and spiritual leaders in determining what the mission, vision, and strategy of the church should be. We never want to be seen as an outside entity giving any kind of direction or dictating what you, as a local church, should be doing. On the contrary, myself and our team of advisors only act as facilitators in the strategic planning process. We will use our experience, training, and tools to draw from your leadership team a roadmap to accomplish the vision God has laid on your hearts. We take that spiritual direction and, with the help of the church leadership, identify practical strategies that will move you forward towards your vision. This presentation will give you a high-level view of the process we use to facilitate church advisory and strategic planning. Understand that each engagement is different, and our work is tailored to the situation. This is the process for a typical engagement. I usually cover this slide at the first meeting with the team I'm working with. As a quick introduction, you're going to learn about the now, where, and how approach to church advisory and strategic planning. We will review a number of tools that I will use to understand where your organization is currently. That's the now. Tools that help you formulate your vision for the future. That's the where. And lastly, tools that help you select the strategies and activities to reach your vision. That's the how. Lastly, we'll pull all this work together in an efficient and highly effective one-page plan. It sounds like a lot, but honestly, the entire process is very logical and geared to producing results within 8 to 12 weeks. The first step in the process is to determine where the church is now. The now may be a discovery process for you and your leadership to put together in one place a description in both numerical and logical terms, a picture of the current status of the church. This process is best when the leadership can be open and brutally honest with each other and our team. Identifying where you are in the organizational life cycle and brainstorming where you land within 5 to 7 key attributes or critical success factors is required. Some of the data for this process will have to be gathered 1 to 2 weeks before the first meeting with the church leadership. Part of our process is to help facilitate the leadership of the church, under the direction of the senior pastor, to write down the vision for the local church. In plotting the vision for the future, the where, simply deriving a vision for the future while ignoring the past is not advised. Although it's fairly common the approach many organizations take in their planning, I use a visioning exercise to help add clarity and context to the process. I ask you to plot the growth of your organization over the past 4 or 5 years. Then you extend that line to your vision of growth in the future. In plotting the past growth first, I work with you to reflect on the positive and negative influences on growth. These positive and negative influences will be important in plotting your vision and later in planning activities and strategies to achieve the vision. Plotting past growth first is also a reality check on your growth vision for the future. This will start a conversation within your group and ultimately will result in more clarity as to the final vision selected. As mentioned above, the now and the where will be focused on 5 to 7 critical success factors. These factors may be measured numerically, others may need to be monitored with other than statistical data. From these success factors, we will develop key performance indicators, or KPIs, that will help measure the success of any plan that we put in place. Some of the critical success factors for churches may be having clear next steps for guests, having simple discipleship path, training leaders, having an outward focus, dynamic and compelling encounters with God on Sunday morning, having a compelling vision and mission, managing resources well. My team and I will use various tools and exercises to bring clarity and develop a plan for addressing each of these factors. These tools lead us into the how. various strategies and activities needed to attain our God-given vision for the local church. One tool that I use is gap analysis. This tool analyzes between 5 and 7 critical success factors. The first step is to list out those factors and have each member of the team rank them on a -5 to +5 scale, where -5 is poor, 0 is average, and +5 is good. We are ranking them first on where we are now, then where we think we can be in 8 to 12 weeks, or whatever time frame is reasonable to the group. The group would then take 5 to 8 minutes ranking each factor. It may be important to note that each factor should be defined for clarity before the ranking begins. The result of the group's now and where for each factor is discussed and placed on a whiteboard. We then look and calculate the gaps between each now and where and determine the 2 or 3 areas where the greatest gaps exist. These areas are the areas that we need to spend our time. The subject of the next slide will help us bring clarity to these areas of focus. It's called the mind map. There are several tools that I use depending on the circumstance to identify the strategies and actions around a how. One approach to add further clarity is to use a mind map. It's a relatively simple but very effective tool. The starting point is to identify the key issue to be addressed, maybe taken from the gap analysis exercise we just completed. For example, leadership training. This is placed in the center. The group then thinks through and identifies ideas and actions that relate to the issue in the center. This tool is ideal for situations when a group needs to understand all of the elements of an issue. The tool not only records, but it also educates and informs the group about the possible solutions. I've seen real breakthroughs in working with groups as they realize the myriad of possible solutions to an idea. It can identify strategies for the areas in the gap analysis that need to be addressed and focused on. The idea is to get clarity. Working through the gap analysis and the mind map, and maybe other tools, will allow the group to thoroughly examine and identify strategies and actions. As a result of the gap analysis, mind mapping, and other tools, we will produce several strategies. It is not practical nor desirable to implement all of these ideas all at once, because there needs to be a focus in working towards solutions. Therefore, we will need to pick those strategies that will have the biggest impact to the organization. This is where the Pareto Principle comes in. You may know the principle as the 80-20 rule. Pareto was an Italian economist who observed in 1906 that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by only 20% of the population. Over time, the 80-20 correlation has been found to be true in many instances. As the slide indicates, the Pareto Principle applies to many areas of our business and personal life. For example, it is highly likely that 20% of your members provide 80% of the annual contributions. Through some straightforward exercises with the application of the Pareto Principle, we can begin to call down the ideas developed through the mind mapping and other tools into those 2 or 3 top strategies that the group believes to be the most impactful, with the highest degree of success. We won't want to abandon the other great ideas your group has produced, but for the present, we'll let our power of the Pareto Principle step in. In the strategic planning process, we've reached the point where 3 key strategies have been selected by means of the Pareto analysis to address your key issues. For example, one of the strategies selected may be small groups. You should not stop at the strategy level. Now I facilitate a tool that selects the best actions as determined by your group to execute the strategy. There are several good approaches to do this. One I want to present is a force field analysis. It is used to develop action plans by discovering what can be done to double the impact of positive forces and at the same time by reducing by 50% the forces that negatively impact on the strategy. The barriers. Discussing the mechanics of the tool is beyond the scope of this presentation. However, as a result of applying a force field analysis on small groups, for example, we have identified activities that will positively impact and those forces that will negatively impact. For the positive forces, then we selected the actions that would maximize or double the positive actions. For the negative forces on the strategy, we selected actions that will minimize or reduce the negative effect. We aren't quite done yet. We have 8 activities selected plus numerous actions for each activity. This is overwhelming, which will result in nothing getting done. We then use the Pareto exercise to select 3 of the 8 approaches. We further drill down using Pareto and select the actions that are the most impactful. Now we have a workable and manageable strategy and action. How do we manage all of this to success and execution to our planning? The next slide is the culmination of all of our work. The one-page plan. Here is how you document and track the entire process, and it is on one page. The one-page plan is simple yet highly effective to develop, monitor, and hold accountable your team to execute the strategies and actions that will get your organization from your current position to where you want to be. The one-page plan is easily understood by the church leadership, your team, your governing board, and your congregation. It's important that it's updated every 8 to 12 weeks as actions are accomplished. The process we have discussed in this presentation begins to crystallize as you create and complete this document. The inserts on the slide indicate the various tools and activities that were used to complete the plan. We start out in the upper center with the title of the plan and the intent. In this example, a plan for discipleship, which is one of the key issues identified. The timeline for this plan is also indicated. In this case, it is a 12-month plan. A differentiating factor in the strategic process builds around continuous improvement. So we usually work in shorter time frames and look for improvement quickly, and then continue the progress and the process with additional actions or strategies. The upper left-hand side of the form documents your now. The upper right-hand side documents those attributes of your where, your vision for the next 12 months. This keeps the goal in mind. The bottom portion of this plan is to document the strategies and actions you develop through the use of the various tools we discussed plus the Pareto analysis. It is also very important to indicate who is responsible for the action and the expected completion date. The approach is that the activities that were selected can be accomplished in 8 to 12 weeks. As the actions are accomplished, you can go back to the force field analysis and review and Pareto some more actions. One additional item I enter on the one-page plan is a key performance indicator for each activity. Essentially, what will be the measure of success? The KPI for developing and training new leaders may be the number of new small groups. This is a dynamic document. If you keep a series of these, you will be able to see the progress you're making towards your vision. Strategic planning should be an ongoing process. The approach I've outlined lends itself to that. My assignment is to facilitate the process in creating this first one-page plan, to assist the company with maintaining accountability for execution, and to help the process continue as the first set of actions are accomplished. As we come to the end of our presentation, here are some key points to take away. The vision needs to be appropriate and defined. Critical success factors for your local church need to be identified, and from that, drive all of your vision, strategies, and actions. These tools presented can be equally effective in other ministry planning, either in a small department or for a special project. Accountability is key. There must be as much focus on execution and accountability as in formulating the plan. Finally, don't let setbacks stop your progress. If you choose 3 strategies and you are successful with 2, that is a victory, not a defeat. Your group will get better over time and you will create a can't-lose culture. Again, this is Brendan Moore. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was enlightening to you. This approach really works. I would love to be a part of your church or nonprofit advisory team and to answer any questions you might have. My contact information is on the slide. Thanks again.